Hello, this is S.K. Williams, and today I would like to talk to you about how the modern world's pursuit of delegitimizing traditional authority and traditional wisdom has led us to a world in which we are stagnated. You see, it's my understanding that ever since the Enlightenment, we've had this odd idea that traditional sources of wisdom and understanding have just been flat wrong about everything, and we'd be better off to chuck it all and embrace the new ideology of the era. But it seems to me that the new ideology of the era has never quite worked out as well as we have been told it ought. And I do believe this is because the new ideology is based less on actually trying to understand the real world, and is more based on an attempt of delegitimizing traditional authority so that we can get what we want. Traditional authority is often seen as something holding us back, preventing us from doing what we desire, which is interpreted as well as what is good for us. But quite often what we think is good for us, based solely on our desires, proves to be bad for us. And what we would like to think of as bad sometimes turns out to be good. This is why when we look at traditional authorities like the Bible or traditional customs or older forms of etiquette, we are often repulsed because in the modern world we are told we ought to do as we please and we lionize the rebel, but what if that's not the best way of approaching things? Sometimes I think we are too eager to think the past bad simply because it is the past. And we assume that the ideologies we have of modern liberalism and modern concepts of freedom should trump anything that historical people have to say. We are more enlightened, more rational, more scientific, and naturally the way we think of things and how we approach them is right. But I often think that a lot of the misery that we live in our modern world is a direct result of that. I don't really think our modern world is happy. I think that we live lives of raw consumerism and people feel empty inside, and many are depressed. Many don't think there's a purpose to their existence. And it looks like people are becoming more and more miserable rather than happy. The mythos, of course, is the opposite, that if you break from traditional authority, then you will be able to find happiness, but typically you're not. The modern world seems instead to stifle happiness. And I do think it's because, perhaps, we are too eager to throw out discipline and a traditional understanding. Traditions weren't formed in a vacuum. They were based on what worked and real-world observations. And just casting them aside doesn't really seem to be all that beneficial to us in the long run. So, in the future, I wish to look at this topic of modern ideology versus traditionalism, how the modern world shuns tradition, and how that not only are we perhaps shutting ourselves off from real wisdom, and how our modern ideology may be wrong, but in how this very spirit of rebellion against traditional authority in the past may itself hinder us. Not only from rediscovering tradition since we see it as a villain, but in poisoning how we see everything else. This idea that things always have to be overturned, I think, is really toxic. So in the future, I would like to give a few talks on that, when I'm feeling up to it, and perhaps when I'm really focused. But today I just thought I would talk a bit about it. Thank you, God bless, and goodbye.